Colleagues, let's start our session. So, Eurasian digital programs is our agenda, technological agenda. And Eurasian digital agenda was approved and adopted by our presidents of our countries in 2017. And during that time, which passed since then, we determined 6 priorities: digital industrial cooperation, digital tracing, digital transport corridor, digital trade, digital sand, and digital. Now today we'll consider the projects the most relevant. Electronic company documents, their design, and transboundary environment of trust, space of trust. 2 projects went through quite difficult times, and but both contribute to the digital agenda, and both of them are in the new format. Usually, it's a normal thing to start and agree upon the legal framework, and joint projects which are important, and they were thoroughly thought out. So which projects today? 2 teams will make their presentations and make speeches. The first team, accompanying documents. So Mr. Tigran Tigranyan, Assistant Chairman of the Board of the Eurasian Economic Commission. Mr. Sergei Kirushkin, CEO Counselor, Gas Informed Service. Evgeny Yakushkin, Head of Electronic Resources Department of the Scientific Engineering Republican Unitary Enterprise, the Interbranch Scientific Practical Center for Identification Systems and E-Business Operation of the National Academy of Science of Belarus. Also Alexei Seregin, Deputy Director of the Republican Unitary Enterprise, National Center of Electronic Services, Republic of Belarus, and Talay Baytirekov, Deputy Director of the EEC Information Technology Department, and Alexander Sasonov, Project Leader at Kaspersky Lab. So there are 2 components, both embracing practice and theory, and our first team, Mr. Tigran. So what projects, what problems, anything interesting? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to mention that electronic accompanying documents in the Commission started actively in 2018 on the basis of the Office of the Management of Electronic Initiatives. All 5 member countries were interested to develop, to look at the issue, and we thought that a transboundary deal will be looked at through the accompanying documents. The mechanisms simplify and facilitate the life of business and controlling bodies and authorities, and they provide tools to reduce in order to reduce the documents, including those which are to be submitted to the government agencies. And since there are 5 countries, number of participants, project turned out to be a global one, and we decided to reach the objectives on stage-by-stage basis. Today, we are representing the first stage, which relates to business-to-business interaction, the whole chain of trade communication between businesses, and several documents, primary documents, which the government can obtain in electronic format from businesses. So each country has such mechanism, such documents, and but we still need to see whether they are properly tackled and understood. In August, September, the Commission, at the level of the Commission, will make decision on the launch of the project, and we are interacting with all concerned agencies, and in August we'll start practical steps in accordance with the action plan. After that, we'll proceed to the second stage, which will ensure the whole cycle of interaction within our countries, including our government agencies, on specific types of documents which accompany the deal, this or that deal. That's all, and probably I need to pass floor to the next speaker. Mr. Sergey, you are active participant of the projects. Could you talk on the specific problems? So, good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to understand how to manage this presentation. Sergey Kiryushkin, Counselor of the General Director, Inform Service, and this presentation was prepared jointly with my colleague Ekaterina Sergeyevna. Based on those 2 blocks which will be considered at today's session, I would like to say that this issue is linked to both aspects. I will start the presentation starting from our R&D, then I will talk about the pilot project, and then I will also, when Mr. Tigran said that it will be August, which as the milestone, the Commission is looking forward to this time. Speaking about transboundary recognition, electronically significant documents. So in general terms, the most important element of the chain, of the supply chain, are documents which are empowered by legal power. In order to have legal power, legal validity, one should ensure that it shall be integral, it shall be authentic, no one shall change anything in it, and the document shall be adequate. Then the document, and we're speaking about electronic documents, which is equal to a hard copy document with a signature and stamp. In order to realize everything in electronic format, you see number of countries. So this list is constantly amended. So these data are as of 2016, but next time I promise to provide the most recent and updated information. But starting from that time, this list has been only expanded. Electronic digital signature on the basis of cryptographic solutions. So you see abbreviations, and this list is being looked for the convenience purpose, is highlighted by red, for example, and or underlined. So any legally significant documents, invoices, universal Passover documents, electronic documents with electronic signature are used, and they shall be recognized on mutual basis. And since our audience are mainly people with digital and economic background, I allowed myself, as our Polish colleagues say, I allowed myself to identify this problem. So our esteemed Belarusian colleagues, for example, have signed, and two parties, suppliers and buyers, and everything is happening within one country. And this is a typical situation. Each country has its own cryptographic mechanisms. And speaking about mutual recognition, these two aspects shall be always borne in mind. So what is being understood as legal validity of the document in Armenia is not entirely the same in Kazakhstan, for example. So then the document is checked, and then some message or tick is sent that everything is okay. But when countries are different, this is true for one and the same country. But if these are two different countries, this lady this nice lady, for example, understood something, and this could not wrote something which could not be checked with the help of electronic digital signature, and within EAUC concept of third-party trust is used. So there is an intermediary mediator who is equipped by all means of cryptographic protection of information in order to check foreign signature, and universal model of trust is used for example, which was used in Kazakhstan, which would enable Kazakhstan party to be confident to sign. So, and moreover, that receipt is then verified by the Russian office. So models could be various, and in this table I tried to unite all information, and our situation is the largest when different cryptographic algorithms and ways of application are different, and these models are unique, and they are applicable and adequate, and we are working mainly with it, with this model. Now, how this scheme is being used within integration system of the Eurasian Union. On this slide, you see that interacting parties are government bodies. This is a picture of from this side of the Eurasian Economic Union, and if you will be interested, you could go to this website of this our organization and look and study this picture more thoroughly. There is specialized switching, and then all requirements will be followed and met, and everything which was said earlier, trade accompanying documents for B2b documents, but then which then shall be submitted to the government. And those complicated technological decisions to the integrated system will be accepted by business with some problems. That's why we need to offer something which will be accepted by in easier way. So we have some time limit, and we have the second block. We are to talk about the digital projects, and we are more speaking about the digital signatures, which is quite boring, and as you see, people are leaving. So let's stick to the point. Let's be let's talk about the topic which has been set. For example, how you test the model. Thank you. I thought to talk about this right now in order to ensure mutual recognition. We are to use the scheme which has been already used, between the suppliers and buyers through operators of electronic document exchange. And we were to add just transboundary element, and then I will show what hasn't been shown.
Еще раз подчеркну, это то, что для того, чтобы, по нашему мнению, это все взлетело, нужно сразу же договариваться, во-первых, о том, чтобы в этой схеме участвовал реальный бизнес. Несмотря на то, что сейчас осторожные участники говорят: ребят, а у вас вот на самом деле все легитимно, вы действительно ничего не нарушаете. Если мы сейчас по этой схеме пойдем, нам потом по шапке не дадут. Вот, несмотря на то, что определенные какие-то вещи пока еще не отлажены,
and despite the fact that some of the things are not regulated from the legal point of view, and every day I receive signals that there are new suppliers, there are new real participants willing to work using this scheme. And yesterday I had a conversation with Deloitte, who said that they wanted to meet with me next week. There are several of our business clients who want to use this scheme, and every day we receive phone calls like that, and we have said this many times. So the supplier from the Belarus is Savushkin Product Company. It's a dairy company, an agricultural company, and the buyer in Russian is the X5 Retail Group, a well-known company. So both sides were the clients of this trained technology product. So for the scheme to make it a transboundary, there need to be the third-party operator in the Republic of Belarus, and we have the representative here of our partner. And Gazinform service is recognition service, provides the service in the Russian Federation. So there is no need to comment on this chain. Please pay attention to the right side of the slide. The e-documents, the invoices prepared in accordance with the Belarusian legislation and with the Belarus signature go through the EDI operator, go from Belarus to Russia, and the Russian operator, document operator, contacts the third-party operator, and then the Russian operator contacts the Belarusian operator, and the Belarusian e-signature for the trade documentation is checked in accordance with Belarusian legislation. And then there is a receipt given at the end, and then the Russian operator then produces its own certificate, sign it in accordance with the Russian Federation legislation. But there is a problem which I call to resolve with the help of the EEU. This is a problem that the Belarusian tax authorities are happy to accept this kind of documents, but the Russian authorities are not willing to, or maybe they are unable to, which I doubt, to accept them. So I hope that the EEC should pay attention to this issue. This is what I want to show you, for you to pay attention to this slide. So this is the receipt. This is what the user needs to present to the public bodies. This receipt confirms that the signature is correct. If we look more closely to this This receipt, we see that it has been prepared in accordance with the Belarusian legislation, cryptography legislation, and this is a quality receipt. And you can see that it says that the client is the Corps Consulting. This concept was invented not by these project participants. It was invented, discovered not in the EEC. It's a global trend which derives from the technical and technology document as a fact. And this concept corresponds with the framework agreement to simplify the e-trade, which came into force in 2016 and was developed following the initiative of Russia and South Korea, and was tested in a number of international formats. And speaking of the CIS space, the first who started testing this on different process is the Shanghai Organization of Cooperation. Here we see the logo of this organization. And at the end, I wanted to say that there are definitely the assessment results that you see there are 3 bullets, and these are the ESCAP assessments and the assessment by the EEC. So the benefits are clear. We save the time, the delivery time. We spend less time at the border, and all of this. So digitalization improves the efficiency of trading process. The conclusions, the findings that we have had, that we have prepared, is that this will be efficient given that these 3 conditions are met. First, it is necessary that all our considerations are taken into account by the authorities who will receive these documents. And I can tell you separately how these projects are done in cooperation with the Russian tax authorities, and we can customs authorities, and we can list the other actors as well. And at the legislation level, these issues should be regulated as well. We need to say that the agreement and the annex of the EU cooperation sets the tone, sets the vector for this cooperation, but of course we need some clarification and we need some specification of this areas. And the last thing that I wanted to tell is there is a need to work with real business clients, because this helps them to save the costs and increase the productivity. So this is our experience. Thank you very much. Sergey Anatolyevich, maybe we'll ask the questions later. We can say that we've been dealing with these issues starting from 2005 within the CIS format, but the digital process allowed to involve the business that base their operations not on the signature but on the movement of goods and services. So let me give the floor to Mr. Evgeny Yakushkin. Many thanks. I wanted to start my presentation, well, our topic is quite boring, but but this is the issue that lays the foundation for the idea of economy. If we look at the basics, at the fundamentals, what's the economy? It's the relationship between the people on sharing, purchasing and consuming the services. And so these exchange processes they include the technology aspect. And in this case, when we spoke about the definition of economy, we use the digital term a lot. So there is a digital aspect. What is the exchange relations between the people? It means that this good is consumed and sold using the digital technologies, and for this reason, this good, this product should be able to speak, so to speak. Should be able to communicate, and it concerns its delivery, its consumption, and its payment. So this is where we could have finished. But the exchange relations imply obligations which are formed from the material objects that support the supply chain, and this is called documents. In real life, this is paper documents, and in our world, the digital documents are real as well, and they should be unified in the global economy. I said global, but in fact, the unification can be done at the domestic level, at the national level. And since we talk about the exchange relations in digital economy of EEU, these documents that support the exchange should be unified, at least as, in the framework of the EEU. But EEU is not an entity or organization which is separate from the rest of the world, which is hidden behind the big brick wall. We still work with the rest of the world, and this document should be unified as part of the international community. So this is my my preamble. Now let's move forward to the topic. For a process to work in the digital economy, it should be identified. It should be it should fit within the e-signature, so that it is transferred to the buyer and seller, and it implies the legal obligations. And the storage system that happened with this good, in the world there are standards to describe the goods to use in the e-trade. This is the example from the e-bank in Belarus, Russia, and Kazakhstan, and there are some similar banks in other countries. So there is a need to unify the description of these goods. These data banks, the product the description banks, serve as a hub to unify the description that can be used for a wide range, starting with the business and ending with public agencies. And this unified description allow the business and government to speak using the same language. Of course, this is just an object, and for it to be able to communicate, it needs to be identified, and it should be marked and should be identifiable. If we want to, and for this, we need this identificator. We just call it global trend identificator. And it covers all levels of packages, starting with hygienic and aggregate. And the last aspect in the supply chain is the payment. After the product has been ordered and delivered, there is an obligation to pay, and the asset cycle is completed by the payment which is done by buyer to the seller. And we need to say that the identification and the history storage of identified objects let us answer 5 key questions that arise in terms of monitoring and of goods. What are these questions? Who, what, where, when, and why did with this good start, and it involves crossing the border, the quality of consumption, and selling through the cashier. For these issues, there is also a number of international standards that have been born historically at the business level, at the B2b level, and then during the last 40 years, they have been moving to the national and international legislation. They form the basis of the relations in the digital economy, and this picture shows the logic of data collection that allows to exclude the paper from the process. And of course, the digital technologies allow to implement number of useful features for users and public bodies, starting with the feature, with a simple feature like the consumer description of goods, and finishing with successfully implemented projects. In this case, we see the scheme of exchange relations between the Russian traceability system and the Russian system of product control, which is called Mercury. There is another successful marking project which is developing now. You know that in Russia, a program has been adopted, and about 30 types of products will be certified. And this is moving towards the in the right direction. So we need to try to keep up with the Russian Federation. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that the project that Mr. Petrov talked about and Mr. Tigranyan, it will significantly simplify the interaction of business and simplify and reduce this process that slow down the production of these goods. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Evgeny Anatolyevich. We don't have any questions for you because you have introduced us to this topic, and maybe your colleagues will tell the specifics. And from your speech, it tells that they know that everything is fine, but we still have some problems. I tried to lead us away from the background, prehistory, why we needed these e-documents and why we started this project at the EEC level. Because we are the people who are fully full embedded to these issues, but sometimes we forget about the background, the origins, why we need to endure the mutual recognitions, because some people get surprised. Why do we still not have this? And Sergei Anatolyevich explained it very well what the problem is related with document exchange, and basically he provided the solution. So I give the floor to the next speaker, Mr. Akimjanov. Thank you very much. I will speak from my chair.
Dear session participants, dear guests, dear forum participants, our company is organized of the pilot project of tobacco goods. Let me talk about this project, the business process of the marking and tracing the goods. The process looks as in the following way. The good is registered in the national catalog, then code of the marking, matrix code, then the good is given to wholesale and then to retail sale. In order to trace the good, movement of the good, so bill of lading needs to be examined. So starting from October of 2017, our company, together with the Ministry of Finance, is conducting the pilot projects of marking the tobacco goods, and the key participator is Philip Morris, British American Tobacco, and also distributors and retail sellers. We plan to complete the pilot project this year. Commercial realization is planned for year 2020. By the end of this year, we plan also to launch pilot projects on footwear, alcohol, and other groups of goods. Within the pilot, we are testing transboundary exchange between Kazakhstan and Russia. Here we show the scheme of exchange of information. So as you see, everything goes through single operator, and in February of this year, factories of BAT in St. Petersburg and Imperial Tobacco in Volga drew up the documents using the digital platform, and official format of electronic accompanying documents are lacking. And so the current situation and transboundary trading is not sufficiently favorable, and businesses bear additional costs, and there are various forms. Too many documents, and when they shift to electronic format, they lack single legal normative documents, non-recognition of signatures, electronic signatures, and EAEU countries need to draw special attention to eliminate those barriers. What can help to eliminate those barriers? So creation of single rules, so approval of the single format, mutual recognition of electronic digital signatures, and understanding this agenda, we think that a digital platform can be used as integration platform of exchange of accompanying documents. What will what the government will get as a result? So both for business and government, both for the business and government, there will be a favorable investment climate. So costs will be cut for businesses, and procedures will be facilitated, and the EAEU member countries will derive advantages, including reduction of shadow economy, and this will be a key driver for development of digital market to make it more attractive from investment point of view. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. You raised several issues, and your report is wider than it was supposed to be. And on catalog and identification, if so, then probably the next speaker could be asked a question about the following question. We heard about the tobacco pilot project, but businesses at least from 3 countries participation was discussed and considered. What would you like to use in this project, and how it will differ from other projects? Within these pilot projects, we would like to work out the technology, so transfer of the transmission of the document in the final format, which would not need to be amended on daily basis, and this technology could be then replicated for all EAU countries. Dear colleagues, so national operator of national body of Belarus. We talked about many interesting projects, but I would like to be more realistic, and from the point of view of technical operator on behalf of one of the member country, to say something which would help us to eliminate barriers and problems. Most of them are technical problems of interaction of technical character, platform related. Then we can say that our monitoring system in the Republic of Belarus, starting from March of this year, showed 0.89% of readiness, which is extremely low. So problems of the introduction of general processes. Only one process has been introduced. So they can't introduce other processes, and these problems mainly are connected to three factors: time, so approval, and lack of coordination between the member countries. So in many countries, there are various ways of automation, various levels of automation, bureaucracy barriers, plus the thing is that service of third-party trust. And the third version, when this third-party trust will be introduced, this is still unclear. And recently, there are increased trends of deviation from transboundary interaction, not through integrated system, electronic passport of technical means. Why they are trying to streamline this interaction? Notaries act according to their own rules. Even within one country, in Belarus, there is lack of coordination, so lack of centralized approach. One of the major problems is the work of technical operators of member countries within integrated system. So there are no agreements for accompanying, and from our side, we see that funding is cut for operation, and this means equipment, people. So these problems shall be shown, and their solution will lay a foundation for proper interaction. This shall be streamlined. They shall be streamlined in a way to have a very well-working scheme, which will work as watch. Here on this slide, I wanted to talk a little about our pilot project, but could you elaborate on this pilot project? Okay, my colleague already said something about this pilot project, about interaction of the first and second supplier. So supplier from Belarus with the buyer in Russia. So the pilot has been implemented. Problems mainly relate to legal normative acts on behalf of Belarus. Tax bodies are ready to accept such documents. And but as far as I know, in Russia, it is also necessary to do some additional work. Yes, this previous slide. So this slide shows service of the third party of Eurasian Economic Trust, of Eurasian Economic Commission. Why? For the purpose of interaction of B2B, there are no single mechanisms to be used. Yes, in that work which we did in 2018, so the same scheme of accompanying documents were used. And on this slide, I want to say that within the pilot in August-September, we'll implement the layer to B2G, that thin layer which is shown at the bottom of the slide, and start B2G through EAEU will be resolved. And this layer through operators will start in August, September, and starting from 2020, the whole cycle will be launched. Thank you for attention. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. You see that there are many problems, and how new stage differs from the previous one. If we are resolving only purely technical problems, not developing institutions, proper institutions, then this resolving process will last forever. That's why we have registered the project mechanism. Decision was made how to be packed and implemented. Then we are preparing new mechanism which will be developing jointly, digital sand. So since all necessary documents need to be developed, and within Sandbox, we'll see how the models work and whether they work. We invite you all to discuss such mechanisms. Two mechanisms are already visible, and then we need to move faster. One of the advantages now is that we can do things jointly. And now let's consider another problem, interaction of businesses. And I want to invite the next speaker, Mr. Baytirekov will talk now.
Good afternoon, dear guests and participants, and my colleagues from the member states. My name is Talay Baytirekov. I'm the Deputy Director at the Information Technology Department at the EEC. My understanding is that the bulk of the criticism is directed towards the EEC, that these issues needs to be addressed and resolved, and I feel that it is necessary to respond to the questions that have been voiced by my colleagues from member states. On the third party, and I'm the head of the working group. So I wanted to say that now we are doing the training of authorized operators at the member states, and this training is done in Moscow City, which will be completed tomorrow. And upon return, they will be able to support, work, and maintain, and do all of this work independently. And I think that by the 20th July this year, we will have the new version that will go through all verification and checking phases. So I am very hopeful that we, in cooperation with authorized bodies and relevant operators of member states, we will be able to introduce the trusted third party this summer. And with regards to the normative support, the legal support, as all of you know, we have adopted the transboundary development strategy which was adopted in September 2016, if my memory is correct. And it says that we go step by step in implementation of this strategy. The first phase was dedicated to interaction between authorized bodies of the member states, and the second stage is the interaction between business community and business with authorized bodies. We have prepared a draft concept for the second stage of strategy implementation. It is almost ready, and it is agreed. 90% of it has been agreed with the member states, and it passed through the public hearings. If anyone wants, you can see it by visiting our website, which was published in March of this year. And in the near future, we will adopt this concept. And I wanted to say a few words about the concept. We said that we will not change the legislation that has already been adopted, because the amendments will lead to the restructuring of architecture. And when we talk about the single architecture, this will lead to the change of architecture. But we have started to the digitalization stage. We had automation, we had digital government, and now we're at a different stage. It will be difficult, and it will be a lot of funding that will need to be spent, and we have adopted a different approach, and recognition of e-signature is a done deal. And it is recognized by the trusted third party. It is just necessary to scale it up for the business community, and this is being implemented as part of the B2b Interaction. And I personally don't see any difficulties here. If we adopt a normative document as part of the Union, the Republic of Belarus, and my colleagues have said previously that some documents are recognized by Belarusian authorities and not recognized by the Russian authorities. And this is a sign of legal vacuum related to recognition of e-documents of other countries. There is a law on e-signature that there should be government agreement. And if there is no such agreement in place, the documents are not recognized. But we should address this issue, and there is an understanding in all member states. And I wanted to say that literally in Monday, the Federation Council has been submitted the draft law on e-signature, which includes the notions like trusted third-party operators, so that the documents and signatures are recognized. And I think that after this draft legislation will be adopted, I think the Belarusian signatures will be recognized in Russia. If the terms and conditions are agreed by both nations. There are three things to be said here. First one is we give the full freedom of interaction. Business is free to exchange information and negotiate and exchange the information in any form, whether they decide to exchange the information through postal services, they can do it this way. There is no restriction in this regard, and this is considered legitimate and legally significant document exchange that is considered in the course. And the second thing is the interaction of large business, big business, and it is more secured interaction when business doesn't know each other. For example, the Kazakh business wants to sign an agreement with Russia or Belarus. They don't know each other, and they don't know whether the signatory from the other side is the director or the CEO, whether he or she is authorized to sign such documents. And we agreed that we will create such services that is foreseen by our budget. And the third thing is the interaction business, the B2b interaction. Some of these documents that have been said, they are requested or required in some form by the respective national authorities, such as invoices. And this is not about recognition of e-signature, but the recognition of the document itself, whether the document does exist, can it be trusted, and whether this person has the right to sign this document. So we need to clarify these things. And in paper form, this is more or less clear to us because we've been working in this area for many years. So how are the passports recognized? If we just make an analogy, make an example. So one state, one government issues this document based on certain rules and requirements and sends it to another country. For example, Kazakhstan sent its passports and sent it to Belarus so that it familiarizes itself and it starts and it has all this secure elements, so a certain procedure needs to be done. The same procedure needs to be done in electronic format because the invoice to confirm, to validate that the invoice has actually been issued and the person who signed it has the right to sign it. These factors should be taken into consideration by us and should be addressed. And now we need to think about service. Like I said previously, the authorization, and whether it has any legal force. Alan Bekovic, thank you very much. And I understand that we can go to the Commission website and we can look at the strategies. Yes, colleagues, you can visit our website. There is a legal portal where you can find the concept and all the other necessary documents that are attached. Thank you very much. Colleagues, and the last speech of our session, we wanted to listen to the business. It's the Kaspersky Lab. Mr. Sazonov, please, the floor is yours. I'm glad to welcome all of you. Thanks for the opportunity to present. And before I start my presentation, I wanted to highlight this. The implementation of technology should be cost-effective and economical justifiable. We need to ask ourselves two questions. What losses are we going to incur, and what losses can we incur after implementing new technologies if based on the risks? But the securedness I think that this is one of the reasons for a slow adoption of integrated system. I think that there are excessive security elements that slow down the process of implementing B2G systems, and if we look at the losses, they could be considered as catastrophic in case if there is any security risk that has been realized. So I want to talk directly about this is a comprehensive infrastructure. There are national operators, auditors, and insurance, and this is a wider notion. And I am also going to tell the blockchain fans where it can be implemented and where it can give benefits. So there are three areas: the transboundary trade, the field of corporation management, the managing of JSCs, and retail sector, namely the personal data exchange. Let's start with the transboundary trade. What trend can we see now in recent years? We see that the business, not waiting some public relations solutions, started to generate some solutions for players who are involved in the supply chains. This concept reminds this one shop, and if one shop is something associated with government, but the level of these platforms with integrated services is a commercial story, and they assume the function of intermediary between the simple small business and the public agencies and all the participants that are necessary for export and import procedures. So for this to be unified and standardized in the UN, CFAC has developed 27 recommendation. Is the portal for one-time recommendations. There is also wide books that are being developed, and these are the portals of integrated services for small businesses. The next trend that I would like to highlight is the use of the knowledge pipeline, data pipeline. It's a structural solution which is based on the following principles. The data required for organization to move the freight should be supplied by those who generate them, who collect this data. The data should be used multiple times. So we uploaded it once and we gave it to a big number of participants. And the second thing is the combination of data, and this should work in a single system. So this is the vision of how this should be combined with infrastructure that is being built in the EAEU. Here we see the integrated system providing the interaction with the government. We see the data pipeline that serves the function of main system to supply the data, and this data supplies can be used by business and by the government agencies that need an information on the freight, and if necessary, if the customs authorities want to confirm the legality and the authenticity, they can request, make a request to the customs authority of other country. But not all data need to go through the integrated system. And I want to highlight an important thing related to the security, like like the previous speaker was speaking about the recognition of a signature, but basically it's a past stage in the world. Now that they talk not about the recognition, but about the identification of individuals or the foreign residents, and combining the capacities of this transboundary identification, and it can happen without using e-signature technology. This can be achieved at the other level, not at the technical level, but organization level, by the responsibility of operators. And I will show you later the operator function is also now one of the global trends. And this can be seen here. Recently, the second European shareholders' rights directive has been issued, and this should be included in the national legislation next month already. And one of the goals of this directive is simplification of identification of shareholders by contacting the intermediaries. So these are the next thing is providing the funding that shareholders could use in the voting process. And another process is the accounting control. Speaking of the place of the transboundary trust. There are two moments. The first one is identification, and the second one is confirmation of authorization. So we need to ensure the link between the voting system with the national register, to confirm that the shareholder is going to vote, whether he or she possesses the shares. And I want to focus on the third area, which is the retail and the personal data problem in this field, in this area. For me, I was shocked to find out that third of the organizations that are provided the data from one single online shop. Most consumers don't even realize that once they start shopping with one site, all their activity, all their history becomes available to other platforms. In Europe, this problem has been addressed through the launch of GDR. And this is the protection of personal data. In EAEU, we don't have such documents, and I think that it's not acceptable to deal with digitalization when we don't pay enough attention to the protection of personal data. When we have such an extensive exchange of personal data, when our personal data becomes so accessible for the business, especially in retail sector. And in this sense, we can form the transboundary trust space for all the participants, starting from the owner of personal data and including the operators of mobile shops and all the companies, and the collection and analysis of data. And we need to include the auditors who will monitor the national operators and how they work with this personal data, and to control them automatically, and the insurance companies who will provide the insurance. But the most important thing, what we need to do is we need to provide the individuals the simple control instrument tool of who is using the data, how they use it. So this is a control tool for you to realize your right to suspend your personal data, or just to find out company use personal data. What are you going to do? Are you going to write a letter or email? How are you going to deal with it? We need an infrastructure where you can manage your personal data without leaving your home. Thank you very much. For each of this topic, we can talk a lot. I tried to cover only the key points. I will be ready to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we overuse our time, but maybe we have some time for one question from the audience. Is there any question from the audience? Okay, we will give you a chance to ask question. The next, let me ask you one question related to personal data protection. In EAEU, you know that in Russia, one of the active participants in Russia, there is a digital portfolio of citizen is being prepared. How is it? What's your opinion on this? I will tell you my personal view on this. That the digital portfolio, which is the accumulation of personal data in one place, is vulnerable by its definition. Basically, we cannot keep all the information in one place. There are many ways to store and process the data in a decentralized way. Thank you very much. That's it. Dear colleagues, we have to conclude. We have to finish. If you have any questions, please ask the questions later. So let's conclude. Let's say that we need to engage the business and we need to use digital sandbox. Thank you very much. And we wait you at our next panel session. And I would like to invite you to Kazan, to the city of Kazan, to the forum which will take place in May 22nd and 23rd. Thank you very much.